This is the Earth to World Broadcasting Network.
Many of you have asked that we have speakers from different aspects of the apartment industry, and that's why Sam is here today. Sam will be talking about the area's apartment market from a developer's perspective. Then we'll take a short break before hearing the latest economic update from John W. Mitchell. And then we'll end with questions from the audience before wrapping up on time at 1:30. Sam Rodriguez is Vice President of the Portland office of Mill Creek Residential Trust, having led the development efforts in the region since 2010. He also assists in the firm's investment group in the acquisition of existing apartment properties. Immediately prior to joining Mill Creek, Sam worked as a development associate for Trammell Crow Residential in the Pacific Northwest region, and he was responsible for the design through construction of over 480 units like Tupelo Alley and Riva apartment projects. Prior to working in real estate development, he practiced multifamily architecture for 16 years, where he managed the design and entitlement of over 1 million square feet of residential housing. Please join me in welcoming from Mill Creek Residential, Sam Rodriguez.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, forgot your name. Yeah, Greg. Greg told me this was a round table. He didn't tell me it was 250 people in round tables. So forgive me if I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to speaking to that many people. What I would like to do today, here it is. Okay. What I'd like to do today is talk a little bit about our experience, talk a little bit about what the changes we've seen since the last cycle through the recession, and then what we're doing today. So to start, I would like to give you a little sort of graphic representation of what I see development, and I'll do this in reference of golf balls. But before I do that, I forgot I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what MCRT is, Mill Creek Residential Trust. We are, in essence, 70 people that left TCR to create a new business model. And so we essentially have been in this business for a long, long time. But MCRT as a company is only 1 year old. And in that year, we've managed to become the 5th largest multifamily developer in the country. But again, back to my golf balls. This is what a developer thinks of as his project. That's the idea. It's a gold golf ball. It's this wonderful idea. And then, the next step is we're going to start due diligence, and we hire an architect. And of course, he has a different idea of what the golf ball should actually look like. And we have Energy Trust of Oregon here. Of course, our architects and ourselves, we want to make our project sustainable, so we put a green roof on it. And then we go to the city and ask them, what is it going to cost to build this? I mean, what are the muni fees? And they just take a chunk out of it. And after you do that, you continue your due diligence process, and you go to do your entitlements and go to design review. And they want to design the building for you. So it kind of looks completely different from what you originally envisioned. And then the next step is, if you keep it all together, that's what your golf ball starts looking like. You start stitching it all together and trying to keep the deal together for the longest time, and it's so difficult. And then if you're lucky and if you nurse it along and get it done, it looks like a golf ball at the end. So after that little bit of humor, I'll start with the actual numbers I know you want to hear. I'd like to sort of, what is the wish list? What is the ideal project? And of course, it's one in an A+ location with a lot of different transportation opportunities and great amenities at a reasonable price. That's hard to find. Clean sites with no environmental issues, almost impossible in a downtown environment. Zoned for intended project use, that we tend to find more easily, but no design review required, which is not something that happens very often. High efficiency plan and catching design, we can control that. If we can control our architect. Location, and I'm an architect, so I can do that. Location with little or no market competition in a growth market. Again, out of our control. Low construction cost structure, we do control that one. and try to. Low jurisdictional fees, that's a subject of further discussion in the conversation. And the availability of equity and construction debt, which we can't work without. So that's my wish list. I didn't get it for Christmas. I thought I was a good boy, but I guess, there's no such thing as an easy deal. So really quick, I know that John will talk a little bit more about some of the economic drivers, but I just wanted to sort of remind everybody the size of our market: 2.25 million people, 867,000 households. And, in a very healthy in-migration of 31,000, well, that's a difficult number to pin down, anywhere between 24 and 34,000 people, and a very young median age. Unemployment is still very high, but the median family income is reasonable for our market. So we did two projects in two different timelines. In 2007, we started construction on Tupelo Alley, which is a very similar project to the one we started construction in December 2011, which is Xavier Street Flats on Northwest 23rd. And I think it's interesting to compare where the economic indicators were at the time. As you can see, unemployment is double. And the economy did grow a little bit. And construction cost is probably very similar. And the biggest driver of the current cycle of apartment building is really driven by this prime rate change, which is almost half. Just wanted to clarify a little bit about something that there's a misconception here, is that construction cost is so much lower than it used to be. It's gone down, and that is true. But if you compare where construction cost was, the construction cost index was in 2007, and where it is today, it's about the same. We didn't actually see construction costs go down until late 2009, and it bottomed out in 2010, and then we're in the same place. So if you developed a project in 2007, you're basically going to see that the cost structure is the same as it used to be. Today it would be the same as it was in 2007. I'd like to show you this one, which is an interesting and very important, obviously, employment growth. We can't lease apartments if we don't have a great employment market. And what we can see here is that, wrong button. Portland was actually doing, the blue is the US, and Portland economy is the green, and you can see how we obviously were doing better than the US economy in terms of employment growth, and we were holding our own as the start of the recession, and it seemed like it wasn't going to touch us. And then we bottomed out in 2009, and now we're starting to recover. Now, this is a classic behavior of the Portland economy, where we kind of come into the recession later. What's interesting to see is it seems like and John might say something different, but it seems to me that we're actually pulling out in par with the U.S. economy. It's going to go here. The other big driver for us is obviously we're all trying to raise rents. We're all trying to keep occupancies very high. And this chart, which is still 2010, I don't have one for 2011 yet, but it shows you that Portland's income growth has, as far as West Coast cities is concerned, and even the U.S. economy, is actually recovering quite nicely. And this is probably quite one of the big drivers of our recovery in terms of the apartment market. And then, this is hold on, where is it? Okay, there we go. The unemployment, as you can see, we had a big gap between us and the U.S. economy, but it seems like right now we're starting to go to parity to the U.S. economy, with 8.6 at a national level unemployment, and so does Portland. Mind you, Portland, not Oregon. Back to this little bit of a comparison, I just wanted to show you how the different components of the capitalization of a project hasn't changed very much from 2007 to 2011. 65% is still hard costs. Land is a little lower in terms of percentages, but financing is one of the biggest ones that has gone down, as muni fees has more than doubled in that same time frame. And this next slide will show you a little bit of what that really is. Construction cost is still a little lower than it was in 2007. Land cost is lower but rising. And financing cost is significantly lower, but then municipal fees is 102% higher than it was when it was, I'm sorry. I need to move it, okay, thanks. 102% of what it was in 2007 and rising. Architects and consultants are a little lower, marketing is up just because it's more competition, and then construction interest and others are also lower. Expenses, controllable and uncontrollable, are up. There's been some inflation there, but the biggest driver of this recovery in multifamily residential is obviously that we've recovered our rents, so it's a big deal at 8%, depending on market, but varies a little bit. We are a developer that uses institutional capital for equity, and there has been one very, very big change in that process. As you can see here, our cap rates, both for the core and just Portland MSA in general, they're very similar between now, right now, 2011 and 2007. But the biggest change is that the yield on cost and cap rate spread has actually doubled. So institutional investors are looking for 150 basis points spread versus 75 back in 2007. The only thing that's really allowed a lot of these projects to move forward and equity investment to move into the market is the fact that we've had some pretty fantastic sales which have established a market and a cap rate that's very low. But I'll go through some of that a little bit further in the conversation. I'm going to, for the sake of, these are different submarkets of downtown. Right now our firm is concentrating its efforts in the downtown area, and in part is because this cost structure is the same wherever you go. It's Portland, but definitely the rents are very different from submarket to submarket. So even though these are somewhat rough numbers, I'm just going to press them all together while I talk. Okay, I guess they're all there. Markets like the Pearl District, the Northwest neighborhood, Goose Hollow, the Portland downtown CBD. Those are where the highest rents are found. On the inner east side, there's certain Hawthorne, Belmont, certain areas that allows some really high rents in this area, in this neighborhood, but not everywhere. And then I might be missing one here. Let me see. Yep. So North Portland has a couple of pockets that shows pretty good rents, and down the Lloyd District, not as good, but it definitely shows some improvements. Now, that's why we are concentrating our efforts in the places where we can find the biggest yield due to that yield spread that I just showed you, and therefore our projects are right now, say 23rd and Xavier, which we're under construction. We have a project on 19th and Johnson in Northwest also, and one right up here on Southwest Jefferson. And this is just quick. This is what we're building on 23rd and Xavier. Again, it's a four-story wood construction on top of a basement. This is what we're planning on 19th and Johnson. Again, 4 stories on a podium. Over a basement. And this is a podium building right here on Jefferson. It's going to be 5 stories over a podium. But at the end of the day, one of the issues is the strata of the market that we're aiming at. The demographics that we're going after is the 25 to 35-year-old professionals. But the reality is our rents have to be, our renter has to be in this group of people to afford the current rents that we're showing. It is a significant amount of the population, but it definitely is what market rate in these neighborhoods we can afford. Now, the holy grail would be to be able to include this group over here, but we still haven't found a cost structure that allows for the type of yields that are required to finance a project in this area over here. So that's kind of the next challenge, I think. And I think part of it will change when yield expectations change, as also the economy improves. So one of the things the HFO guys asked me to talk a little bit about is how do we choose a place. And I think right now we mentioned that the A+ sites are the ones that are going to get done. It's very difficult to do anything in a B site, and those A sites have to be surrounded. So this is our savior. This is Northwest Portland. We did this project with Prudential. It was the VO. It's a condominium, and one of the important things that you have to have is you have to have the there and the amenities in close proximity. And the next thing you need to have is access to good transportation, whether it's in this case streetcars and buses, MAX. In this particular case, we also have great access to the highway, sort of a back door, in a sense, and good employment. There's about 2,500 jobs in the legacy system. Good schools. There's also a lot of other offers. I mean, there's Conway, which actually sold us the land. That's about 800 jobs, and some other jobs up here at Montgomery Park. So there's a lot of opportunity, as well as walking distances to downtown, 10 minutes to the Pearl District, 20 minutes to downtown. That is very important for this type of demographic. I don't know if you guys use Walk Score, but this is 94 points, which is it's an amazing score. So a little bit back to Xavier Street Flats. What is the composition of these projects? I mean, for us, we develop buildings that are at least 100 units or more. Probably 300 is our top limit. So this is right in the middle of that. 700 square foot average units, which is a great, it's a small size, so you'll start seeing, I think, a lot more of this type of size of unit in the downtown core. Retail, where it is, where it makes sense. I mean, this is off of Northwest 23rd. Retail makes sense there, but anywhere else, we're very cautious of where we put that, and a very low ratio of well, not very low, but I mean a reasonable ratio of parking. We found that in our buildings, when we build one-to-one parking in the downtown conditions, a lot of times the penetration is 80%. So it almost seems absurd to start building keep on building one-to-one when you're not going to get any income for it. So we're looking at smaller ratios like this. This is the type of rents that we're looking for in these submarkets. It's a range. But as you can see, the yield needs to be in this range also in order to get financed. This particular project will be completed in May 2013, stabilized in October of the same year. We talked a little bit about efficiencies, construction systems, and so forth. I mean, I just wanted to show you what this project is in particular. Double-loaded corridors, very important. We're using a lot of these deeper units. They've proven very popular in the market, and also they allow for additional density. The relationship of how much of the unit has an exterior facade has a lot to do with the cost. So again, that cost structure is something that we have to keep our eye on all the time. In this case, this is 23rd, and here's the retail. And then parking, this is your typical floor. Just going to go through that. And then, again, parking as efficient as possible, always trying to strive for a double-loaded driving aisle. And one thing that we've learned the hard way is that there's never enough bike parking in our buildings. Just never enough. So in this case, we have parking ratio of 1.72 to 1 unit. Parking ratio of bikes is 1.6. The other thing I think, we're talking about a demographic, a young group of, this younger cohort of 25 to 35-year-olds with a bit of disposable income, but they're really into technology. So even though we are loading our amenities, loading our buildings with the traditional amenities such as, fitness center, the the community room, a kitchen, that kind of stuff. We're trying to make it be more of an informal gathering space. We're loading it up with technology, Wi-Fi, different possibilities to incorporate different systems, like Xboxes and Wiis and whatever they want to play, we'll make it available to them. We're adding, in this case, we're adding a big screen like this one that will come out of the ceiling so that we can do some projections inside. We're adding a screen outside so we can do movies under the stars. We're adding grills, all sorts of amenities that we found in the last round of business. Those are tools that are needed by the management company in order to keep the occupancy very high and keep interest and keep people renewing their leases. We are active building system where the building managers can communicate via email and iPads and iPods and what have you to inform the residents of what's going on in the building, as well as having them use the website to do work orders or complaints or anything like that, and you can control the process. So those are kind of the amenities that we have, the common amenities. And then again, we're targeting a fairly high-end cohort of fairly affluent, and they're looking for condo level finishes, and they're willing to pay for them. So we're looking at the granite and the stainless steel appliances and that kind of thing, air conditioning, and so forth. Just the apartment market indicators in general. We're seeing that in the Portland MSA as a whole, which includes a lot of includes Vancouver, includes Gresham, and so forth. We're looking at $1 per square foot rent average, but the downtown average, including all of the old stock, is looking more like $2 at this point. Rent growth is good. I think in the downtown, it's hard to tell where it ended up in the fourth quarter. Some people say it was going to end up at 10. At this point, I just put 8.2, but I think 10 was probably achievable. Next year, it's hard to tell where it's going to go, but I would say 5 to 6% is going to be the rent growth in the next couple of years. My personal opinion. I think there's enough pent-up demand to warrant that happening. And then, occupancies have been great and seems to be staying quite stable. We had a little blip in the third quarter, but it's also there's a seasonal effect. This is something that everybody's very worried about, which is the pipeline. What is coming down in the market, what's getting built, what's not getting built, and what is the absorption. So I think this is a pretty interesting chart because it kind of, we're right here. So we have a huge gap right now between the units completed and the units needed in the market. This big spike is probably a result of people decoupling from roommate situations, living with family, what have you. This is starting to happen, and you can see the demand growing very, very fast. And we have not developed anything in 2 years. And I'll talk a little bit about that further down of what new product has entered the market through these years. We're starting to, there's a whole bunch of starts there's another slide for that, but about 1,200 units started in 2011, and maybe 2,000 will be started in 2012. So we're definitely starting to recover. And we just hope that we manage to merge this into something that's a little bit more sustainable and not overbuild, but start meeting the market. I was going through this. This is a quick slide, a quick couple of slides that show what the apartment production in the Portland market has been in the last few years. 2004, there was the production of about 758 units. And then 2005 to 2007, hardly any apartments were produced. Most multifamily residential was condo, and it was impossible for the apartment developers like ourselves to compete in the market for land. And so we other than 60 units produced, renovated the Crane building in the Pearl District, there was hardly anything done in the downtown area. There was about 1,200 units. I mean, we were active, Simpson Housing and some others were active in the suburban market where there was some production, but nothing, hardly anything in the downtown market. Then we managed to start building a few things, us and others, and then all of a sudden the recession started, and every single condo that was not already sold or half sold, and even some of those that were half sold, they bought them back and put it in as apartments. And there was a dumping of these, and if you count some of the suburbs, even more, 2,500, some say even 3,000 units were dumped into the market. And at the worst time, recession started at that point, and it was very competitive. You saw everything from 3 months concessions. You saw occupancies drop. You saw prices drop substantially. So those units have been absorbed. All those projects have been stabilized, and most of them are doing very, very well, depending on the management. But most of them are doing very well. This is what got started last year, at least to my count. If anybody has anything that is not up there that wants it, please let me know, and I will happily track it because it's important to us. So we have a little under 1,200 units. All of them, as you can see, except the only person that's very active in the suburban markets is Holland. Clyde Holland is doing, almost 600. Let me see, 500 and some units in the suburban markets. Everything else that you can see are smaller projects, more sized, bite size, and they're all in the Portland core, one way or another. And it's hard to tell where we're going to end up in 2012. The reality is that if you haven't started by the end of the first quarter of this year, you will not start construction. Chances are very slim that you're going to start construction by the end of the year, unless you're in an area that has no design review or where permitting can be done expedited. But so by the end of the first quarter, we'll be able to confirm that. But I think on the 1,500 units, maybe 2,000 on the outside, that will be started next year. So if you see the average year, if you take the last 10 years and see the average production of apartments in the Portland market is probably somewhere around 4,000 units. So we're not even hitting halfway what the normal production of apartments in a year are. Mind you, a lot of that 4,000 is in the suburbs, and the suburbs, other than these two projects, hasn't seen a project start in a while. Maybe this year. One of the things that has made apartments attractive to invest, new development attractive to investors, is the fact that some of the older stock developed in the last cycle has sold for pretty amazing prices. The first one to really go out there was Cyan, that was sold for about a 5.15 cap. It was not stabilized at the time, so that was a pretty good cap rate on the fact that it wasn't completely leased and stabilized. Tupelo Alley sold right after that, about a 4.2 cap. It was fully stabilized at the time, and it was on the rents at the time, on the current rents at the time of sale. Opus probably, they did very well. This was a high watermark for that market at the time, and it was a 4.3 cap on, and I don't remember. I don't think they were completely stabilized at the time either. So that was a pretty interesting. So all of a sudden we started having a market. That's something that we didn't have for a while. You could have gone out there for an appraisal, and the appraiser didn't know what to do. They didn't know what your property was valued at, because there was nothing to compare it to. Kearney Plaza was a pretty amazing deal. It's a phenomenal location, but it's still a over 10-year-old property. Has no amenities, has a lot of things that were not put into apartments at the time, but it still sold for a 4.5, a little over 4.5 cap. And, sorry. Enzo then broke the high water mark by selling at $347,000 a door at hard to calculate, but about a 4 cap. And it's a good location. but not as good as Kearney Plaza. So it's a pretty amazing, amazing sale. And then our friends at HFO here, I just heard they closed. I hadn't realized they had closed just before the end of the year. I went on vacation, so I guess that's what happens. You snooze, you lose. So I don't know what they sold it for, but we'll all find out at one point or another. And we hope it's a continuing progression of good cap rates. So I'll conclude a little bit with what are the demand drivers that we see. There's, again, a stable population with a healthy in-migration and a healthy demographics in general. Economic diversity. We are always very jealous of Seattle and some of their huge employers. They have Yahoo, they have Microsoft, they have all these incredible, they start hiring and it's 5,000 jobs that they create with someone's signature. It's great. But at the same time, it makes them very susceptible to changes in those particular industries. The one thing I think we have going for us is that 70% of jobs are created by the small businesses, and we have a lot of those in a lot of different lot of different parts of the economy. So I think that's something that's going for us. Lifestyle and livability. People like living in our strange little city. And it attracts people. It's a phenomenal place to live. You've got the mountains, you've got the sea, you've got the beach, you've got so many things to do, and it's a very livable city. So I think it does attract a lot of people, and that's why we're getting that very healthy immigration, still through the recession even. And then as much as I like to gripe and complain about entitlements and land use policy and urban growth boundaries and all that sort of thing, it does help. It does make it a higher barrier to entry market. It also makes it a little bit more difficult so we don't sprawl and overbuild. And then the lack of new projects started during the recession, that's going to end at one point. Everybody that can will start building in this market. And then challenges moving forward. For developers, again, construction cost, it's the same as it was in 2007, but there's a lot of indications that inflation is entering the market, the construction market. We'll see how that goes. I mean, if it stays stable, we'll be able to do a lot more deals, and it'll just get harder as construction cost goes up. Increased competition, that's going to happen. I mean, that's what developers do. They start developing as soon as they see an opportunity. So they'll jump in the market, and we'll all be working together, hopefully, and we won't overbuild the market. Increased in land costs as more developers jump in, more landowners will start asking more money for their property, for their land. The cities, city fees and all jurisdictions, not just Portland, they're increasing their SDC fees and municipal fees. That has become a big issue. It's a big component, as you can see. It's a bigger component than the financing of the project these days, as you saw in that other chart. It's it's coming to the point where in Portland, it's $14,500 a door in fees to develop any new product. So it seems like the city has lost its vision and focus on the economic development, both in attracting employment as well as in allowing for new development to occur. So hopefully, with changes political changes in City Hall, that might change, but it is a concern. Entitlement remains increasingly difficult. There's more NIMBYism. There's more. I don't want to see that. I think it's too tall. I think it's too dense. Even though we all profess that we like density, that's part of our mantra as a city, when it comes to putting it next to your house, they don't like it. Debt and equity is still cautious and will be cautious for a long time, and will only do the A locations. And then the biggest one is the fundamentals. We need jobs, as many as we can get them. As many as we can get, it'll be a healthy economy, and we'll be able to build more apartments, and those of you that have apartments will be able to lease them and continue to hopefully raise rents and raise occupancy. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Feel free to learn more about our firm by visiting our website or calling us directly. Thank you.
This is the Earth to World Broadcasting Network.